On this episode.
And the web actually took more time than people think it did. It took about, 5 years. But the key thing was getting high-speed internet. That was a minor but still important milestone because that changed everything. We had to use them from modems.
Right. I remember the dial-up modem I had at home just to get email. It was very exciting.
From the coveted corner booth in a little bar at the center of the Coachella Valley universe, welcome to another Big Conversation with Patrick Evans and Randy Florence, presented by the McCallum Theater. Visit McCallumTheater.org or reach the box office at 760-340-2787. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Howard. We are here back in our favorite corner at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California. Big Conversations Little Bar. My name is Patrick Evans, and I'm joined by my good friend and probably the greatest podcast co-host since they invented the medium, Randy Florence.
It would have been inappropriate for me to say it, but it's pretty good that you did. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Don't want to, leave all the heavy lifting to you, Randy.
No. Well, I'm old and my back's bothering me.
Because you're not only the co-host, but you're the research department for Big Conversations Little Bar.
Yeah.
He comes in well prepared. And I come in.
You should say that at the end of the interview, not at the beginning.
We'll find out how well prepared. And we are really delighted to have a gentleman who really is known nationally and internationally, but calls Palm Springs home. Tom Rielly is with us. Tom, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure, and it's cool to see this little bar.
It's a cool little bar. I should note, by the way, a big thanks and a shout-out to the McCallum Theater, our presenting sponsor. The season is just about to get underway. If you've not ordered your season tickets, do so at McCallumTheater.org. They support Big Conversations Little Bar. We support them, and they are the artistic backbone of the community. So we love the McCallum Theater.
We do love the McCallum.
I love the McCallum.
Well, we can stop now.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. It's been a great week.
Wait, I love McCallum too.
And it's unanimous. That's our producer, John McMullen. All right, Tom, I want to start here. You are a TED Fellow. Is that the correct terminology?
Actually, I founded the TED Fellows program.
So you were the original fellow.
Right, exactly. I pitched it to my boss and said, I want to create a program where we recognize super genius young people from around the world. And the smart thing I did is I went and raised $1 million in advance. So when I went to him, I already had the money, and he was like, okay.
Well, that makes it very easy, doesn't it?
Steve Martin has an old joke about writing a book, How to Be a Millionaire and Not Pay Taxes. And step one is get $1 million.
That seems almost necessary. All right, so I know what TED Talks are, but I'm not sure I really understand the whole concept of what TED is and does. And so clearly you can tell me.
I think I probably can. It's really founded around the idea of ideas worth spreading or sharing, in this case. It's now sharing. They just changed it. And the idea is, it originally was a conference where you bring people together. They pay a lot of money to go. We have people speak on the TED stage. They're often amazing, very inspiring. They get to interact with the audience members. But it was all about ideas. And that's gotten bigger over the year. I went in 1990 for the very first time, so it's been 34 years. Yeah. And I'm the only one who's been that long, continuously even.
Where does the name come from, Tom?
Well, some people say it stands for technology, entertainment, and design. But we've long since, like FedEx, abstracted it's TED, right? So some people still use it with those nouns, but I don't very much.
Got it.
So, but it's become a brand unto itself. Like you mentioned FedEx, and now no one says Federal Express, but we all know what they mean. And so TED is kind of...
That's right.
People just say a TED Talk, and we automatically know what they mean. And so how did you get involved?
Well, back in 1990, I got this brochure in the mail that said, we're doing this conference, and it was really beautifully designed. I care a lot about that. And the speakers are people I'd wanted to see forever, like Nicholas Negroponte and Alan Kay and a bunch more folks. And it was $3,400. And somehow I was like, maybe we can get work to pay for that.
Have scholarship.
And so my boss and I came, and I was like, every single thing I'm interested in is here. I love this. I want to be part of this. And I've never missed a conference since then.
Well, I'm interested in getting up to that spot then. So where were you prior to 1990? What were you doing?
That's a good question. So I started a for-profit corporation, a startup, a Silicon Valley startup with venture capital and everything, called Planet Out. And the purpose of Planet Out was platform for LGBT people, for communications, news, arts, etc. And that we unfortunately kind of ran into the dot-com crash of 2000, which wasn't...
I lived in Silicon Valley during that time. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Randy crashed several companies right then and there.
Yes.
Absolutely. So did I. And the thing about being an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley is you don't know what you're really doing at all. And the idea is to make as good guesses as you can to stay alive to go to the next round.
Right.
But it was a very difficult time, and I think it taxes your character. Like, the worst parts of your character will come out. But doing my own startup was great. And before that, I had also an LGBT thing called Digital Queers, which was, well, John was part of it. We had folks in our group that raised money from Silicon Valley employees to give money to national LGBT groups that had nothing. They had nothing, and we kind of went over and we called them beauty makeovers because we would do everything for them. So that's a long story, but anyway.
Well, during the dot-com time, there wasn't very much advancement for LGBTQ and that kind of thing. It was still way behind the curve. So where was the impetus for you to really get started and start pushing that?
Well, because I was working in companies that were part of the Macintosh scene. And
Macintosh computer?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was a fanatic. I mean, absolutely fanatic. And I just got this energy. It was like being Johnny Applequeer, going out. And
I read that story completely wrong.
Right. Exactly. And we were able to make a huge difference. And we also taught members of the elite of the LGBT community how to use this technology for you, because the right wing was starting to get their act together about it. But anyway, we were able to make a big difference really fast. And the most important thing is we could only do so many beauty makeovers, but then everyone saw, the other organizations saw what they're doing and said, okay, well then I need to invest in that. And so all of a sudden, within just a few years, every LGBT organization not only had brand new tech, but they had an IT department and a budget, and it was awesome.
Can I jump in here? Because I think Tom is severely underselling his involvement with this. He was definitely one of the marketing minds that was in high demand in Silicon Valley. And he brought together tons of his friends who would come to Macworld Expo in San Francisco, and we would have these parties each year that we would raise funds, and this was the organization Digital Queers, which he and his friend Karen Wickery co-founded and operated for several years. And the idea is at that time, a lot of people in those religious right organizations were working very actively to put their technology to use and to use things like email to do a whole new level of outreach to their followers and to get people to support their causes. And what DQ represented, at least to me as somebody who came into it as being an attendee at a Macworld Expo back then in the 1990s, was this opportunity to get together and to endow the national organizations on the nonprofit front that worked on all these different human rights and civil rights related causes, to have the technology to give them basically a level playing field with the people who they were competing with to achieve these things.
And is this because people were throwing up roadblocks so they couldn't?
They meaning
anybody. If you were developing an organization to support, very often that's done as a result of something that's not happening.
Right. Well, here's the roadblock. The leaders didn't believe that this was going to be valuable for them at the beginning. They sure changed their minds. But at the beginning, there was the first group we did is called the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. It now has T and B in the in the name. But so we raised all this money, like, I don't know, 50,000 the first time, and then 25,000 on top of that at one, just one party. And this party, by the way, was also a place where I thought you were gay, and oh my God, you're totally cute. And lots of social components happen. But what we did is we went to see the NJLTF the day we were supposed to put the stuff in. One of the board members came and said, "Tom, can you come talk to the board?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, of course." And like, well, we have some concerns about putting in this technology. We don't know what's going to happen. And I said, well, yes, you don't, but okay, I have an idea. And I said, look, let us put it in the way we want to do it for you. And if you change your mind, we'll come back. I'll take pictures of everything. We'll come back and put all your old stuff the way it was before. And the week later, they called and said, we need RAM upgrades. And I was like, we've won.
So what kinds of technology were you supplying?
Good question. So Macintosh computers, laser writers, legal software from John. He gave us PageMaker and I want to say InDesign, but what's the design software?
Oh, there were several. I mean, companies like Adobe and Aldus and Quark and Microsoft, people were basically getting all the applications that are used by a lot of businesses to do everything from word processing and running spreadsheets to databases to being able to do photo and page layout stuff and desktop publishing and so on and so forth.
This was totally empowering for them when they realized the whole point of this was not to help the organization. The whole point of it was to help the organizations help their constituencies. Hundreds of thousands of people, they could all of a sudden do, mailing lists and stuff. And by the way, this is an email time. There's no web.
Right.
And still do a lot.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy time back then. I remember working in an office in 1990 where we all were going to have access to web email for the first time. And there were like 30 of us working, and the company decided to just put in one outlet so we could all plug in the morning and upload the information because nobody had any clue what it was going to be like.
Well, I remember because I still have probably in a box in my garage in Cathedral City a T-shirt that was one of the loud and proud calling cards for the organization Digital Queers that boasted, "We're here, we're queer, we have email."
And that was inspired by the National Gay and Lesbian Journalists Association, who had "We're here, we're queer, we're on deadline." But that became, people responded so well to that we used it like forever.
Where did this passion come from? What was it in your youth or your life that got you to the point where you had the interest in getting involved with something like that? Was there a path?
Well, I mean, I'd like to say that sexual sublimation got me where I am today.
You wouldn't be the first one in this booth that said that, but
right. No, exactly. So through all of this, I was never getting my sexuality. I mean, I was openly gay, but negotiating with your family is something different. And so I was really motivated by this idea of making things better. And then I was I guess what I was good at is just kind of like looking at stuff and saying, how do these things fit together? And I'm not trying to sound immodest, but that's what I did.
No, it sounds like you're pretty much utilizing both sides of your brain for all of this.
Well, I'm lucky. Who else gets the opportunity multiple times to do this? We have, even now, a new LGBT thing called Chaotic Guide, which is the Chaotic Guide to LGBTQ Moving Image. You can get to that from our website. We just did that as a little project because we just thought it would be cool. And most lists on the web of queer movies are just like a list without curation. And what we did is only stuff that was really good, and not judged by me, by the film historian Jenny Olson.
Did I see that you were in the movie My Bodyguard?
You did.
That movie meant something to me. So how did that whole thing come together?
Well, at my high school, I went to this high school called New Trier High School. It's well known. Anne Margaret and Bruce Dern and Rock Hudson, Charlton Heston all went, and so they had a prominent theater program, really prominent. I was part of that, and I got one of my theater teachers said, these directors are coming to town, or a director and a producer are coming to interview kids possibly for a movie. Do you want to do it? And I was cheeky. I was like, yes, of course I do. And the way that I got the role was by telling John Wayne Gacy jokes to the producer. I was 15. I was
I've never used that.
I was very precocious, and we were in Chicago, so. But I basically made them laugh, and so they.
Do you remember some of the jokes?
No. I wish I could.
At least use some good serial killer jokes.
Yeah. Humor is a big whole part of my life. It's my natural mode, and I enjoy making people laugh.
Is it cathartic?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're in this movie, which was a pretty big deal. I mean, for any kids who had been bullied growing up, that movie really meant something.
I'm one of the kids who gets bullied in the film, by the way. Go on.
I remember the character. I saw the picture of it. Did you any wish to continue on that path after the movie?
I absolutely did, but I ran up against a brick wall. My dad. He thought film was vulgar and beneath me, and would conflict with my academics, and he refused to let me do it. Maybe from today's point of view, I might have known how to manipulate him to let me go, but unfortunately, I was not able to.
That had to be hard.
Oh yeah, it was very hard, and I think I was pretty bad, but I think that I could have gotten a lot better with a little bit of training.
What did he want you to do, Dad?
Go to Harvard and study foreign policy.
Yeah.
Because that's what he did.
Well, that's not a bad choice.
No, that's not a bad choice.
It's not a bad choice, but where did you come upon your passion for the technology side of things? And when did you start to see, I think you clearly saw the power of that technology before a lot of other people did.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, I was not a nerd. I was not a tech person at all.
That super surprises me because most of the people I know today who are Mac aficionados they start out as nerds.
Yeah, God bless them. Here's what happened. I was seduced by Steve Jobs, like literally.
Not physically.
Not physically. No.
Damn, we were going to get into a really interesting
good story.
20 minutes.
I'm sorry, we keep distracting you.
No, it's fine. So the Mac, when I was at Georgetown, the Mac came out, and I figured out, without even having one or touching one, just by reading magazines about it and stuff, that it was one of the most important things that would ever happen in the entire world, ever. And, of course, I think you can arguably say that was probably right.
Well, it's 100% true.
Yeah.
And so it was the seductiveness of Steve Jobs that got, he was kind of cute, that kind of got me into it. And then it all built from there. But once again, I was not a techie, but I became a techie because of the Mac.
When did you get your hands on a Mac and began to realize that your prediction was true?
I got my hands on it in 1985, but that was just at the dealer. And then this shows my fanaticism. I actually transferred from Georgetown to Yale because Yale was in the Apple University Consortium program where you could buy Macs for half off. So I moved. It's true.
Can you still get that deal?
No.
Oh, damn it.
No. They were betting that,
You could, but you had to give it into Yale.
Well, okay, never mind.
So they were betting on people who got stuff from that program would grow up and be interesting, important people, and it actually worked. It took a while, but so I was obsessed before I even had a Mac. I was obsessed with it, and then I started learning everything I could learn.
And then Steve kind of went a different direction right around that time, didn't he? The Next computer, did you have any involvement in that company?
Not involved with Next. I respected it, but the problem is when you make an education computer, then it's $10,000. That's a hard row to hoe, I think. No, I wasn't, but John Scully did fire him. I think it was in 85 or 86. Everyone still at the time and even now, I think thinks he's one of the greatest leaders of all time, even though he was very difficult.
Were you close enough at all to see the different sides of him?
I only met him like 2 or 3 times. I wouldn't say it's fair to say that I knew him well.
How did you meet him?
Oh, at a Mac trade show. But, already we know that he'd invented the Apple II, 2 Plus, 2E, 2C, and the Mac. And that was a pretty impressive record.
Oh, it's incredible.
I never cared about any of those computers except the Mac.
That's the only computer I've ever had at home.
And the reason why is because you could look on the screen and there's a picture and use your hand and move your hand on this mouse and it would move on the picture. And it just made total sense to me because I'm really more of an artistic kind of person. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, he was the jumping off point for me, for sure.
And when did you start to see the possibility? You talked about it. It was a time you were involved in organizations. You were helping them with things like email and databases and that sort of thing. But then suddenly there was the web, and the power of these tools became exponential.
That's right. So the second, so there was the PC. We'll give IBM the PC as an important invention. We'll say
Commodore.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Mac was the tectonic change, but then the web was even more important than that. And what really mattered is if you put a Mac together with the web, and then you would be like to 100. The amplification of what you could do would just go up so much. And the web actually took more time than people think it did. It took about 5 years, but the key thing was getting high-speed internet. That was a minor but still important milestone because that changed everything. We had to use them from modems. Which
right. I remember the dial-up modem I had at home just to get email. It was very exciting.
I ordered Christmas presents one year off of Prodigy on dial-up.
You were really...
I'm really old.
Masochistic.
I think a bunch of those ended up being delivered to the house like in mid-April and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. Prodigy wasn't my favorite.
No, and you had to pay to get on the web back then. You remember you had to buy the software just so you could...
Well, you did. You had to do that with AOL as well. You didn't have to buy the software, but you had to buy it for the service. AOL was also very, very important because it took the web and packaged it in an easy-to-use way that helped people, and it was constructed for the non-high-speed internet world.
Right. And that was why we ended up with, my middle-class household got web because of AOL.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, so did I.
That was just the way it was done.
I want to get into the TED Talks thing. So,
sure.
I
thought
was
that's where we were at first, and then we went.
Yeah, and then we circled, and I brought him back.
Now we're back.
Yeah.
Okay.
To TED Talks.
So I was a little nervous sitting down because I watched an 18-minute video of you ending one of the TED Talks with your final.
It makes no sense at all. There's no context. You weren't there. There's no reason why you would understand it. But there may be a couple things that are funny.
Watching you walk around the stage, pulling up different props, it was fascinating to me. So talk a little bit about what that role was, what you were actually doing at the end of those TED Talks, and then how that started.
So my friend Russell Brown, who's the senior art director at Adobe still to this day, was going to do a video for TED, and he was going to do it basically based on a satire of Godzilla. And then, I came up and we riffed a little bit. But eventually in 2005, he did his movie, which he did. And then the night before, I was telling him jokes upstairs in the Marriott, and he was like, "Oh my God, you've got to do these downstairs." And he had his assistant help me render them on overhead projector material, which is, we came up with this notion, which we did for 13 years, which is that the lowest tech version of what had happened was funnier. So anyway, I got up there and I told these jokes and I got a standing ovation. And I wasn't planning on it, but we wrote these jokes like the few hours before the end of the conference. And it was awesome. And then they asked me to do it again. And I was very goofy about it. I didn't want to be like some formal slides humor. We did use slides, but at the service of jokes. But lots of prop humor and, a little bit of risque humor, I think.
How did it go over with the attendees? I mean, you got a standing ovation, obviously.
They loved it. They loved it.
Were people eventually looking to be one of the ones that you talked about or that you called out? Did that become a badge of honor?
That is a very insightful comment. I don't know if anyone's ever asked me, but it's 100% true. The speakers would get frustrated with me if I didn't make fun of them.
So they're literally doing things to get your attention.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but I would use it to create cathartic moments for speakers who had been assholes and stuff. I would take the piss out of them, not in a totally mean way, unless they were really deserved it. But for the most part, just doing that. And the whole process is like you go to Target and get a bunch of stuff and make it the night before.
I'm curious. I mean, I've seen a couple of TED Talks, but like someone comes in and uses the stage and they're just a total asshole, and then you get to pick on them about that.
You want that job, huh?
So, like, what? Give me an example of that. Someone utilizing their TED Talk to be a jerk.
Sure. The physicist at MIT, really brilliant woman, but she was really abrasive in the presentation, and people were like not liking her. Her book, I made a slide of it, and it was pretty mean. She was mad.
She got mad.
But almost never they got mad. They almost were like, I deserve that, you know. And I never. My goal was not to slam people. My goal was to make people laugh.
Right.
And you mentioned before we started recording that at one point you kind of had to stop that because the whole PC thing, and there were things you just couldn't talk about.
That's actually not true.
No?
I retract. I was starting the TED Fellows program, and I couldn't do both. And I basically had to say one or the other because it was really, really stressful on site, and I just couldn't. And I chose my new program. So.
Were people waiting for it? Were they disappointed the first year when it didn't happen?
Oh, they're still disappointed. You know, it's been more than 10 years, and people still are like asking, I really liked it when you did blah. And it's so sweet.
You know, one of the things that I hear often from people is TED Talks that just impacted their life. It was so important. Mm-hmm. You have examples of some of those that had an impact on you?
Not that physicist girl.
No, not her. She was
not
stupid book.
So, here's my favorite TED Talk of all time. That was in 1993, 4. The speaker's name was Sherwin Newland. He was chair of the psychiatry department at Yale University. And he got up and he told this story about this kid, this man who had issues. Basically, this guy had an amazingly important job, wonderful wife, lovely house, lovely children, and he started getting depressed, like really hardcore depressed, like can't, like sleep out in the gutter. His wife left him. And, you can have sympathy for her. Basically, he was like living in the gutter. And this guy with a big, big career. I always tear up when I tell the story. So there were some doctors nearby, and they would step over him on the way to work. And one of them, a young resident, was like, why don't we cure him? We know how to cure him. We'll use ECT and electroconvulsive therapy. And the people at their hospital didn't want them to do it because they're like, if it doesn't work. And the guy was just like, let me try. And they're like, what is there to lose, right? So he tries this series of ECT, and the patient gets better really, really fast. By 7 days, he was functioning in the world. By a month, he was perfect.
Wow. Sounds like flowers for Algernon.
It does.
Yeah.
And then he said, the patient was me. And I was like,
oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's true story. And he recently died. I have great affection for him, and he's one of the most popular doctors. And he got everything back. He's the chairman. Until he died, he's the chair of the Department of Psychiatry. He got a house. He found a new wife, and he got everything back.
Wow. That's a remarkable story.
Isn't it?
Have you ever seen any just total disasters up on stage?
Oh, yes.
Any examples? It's always the same one. It's the same woman.
lady.
Okay, there's several. One of the ones that's most interesting is Ray Kurzweil, who he invented the Kurzweil synthesizer, and he was a pioneer in AI, basically. And he has apparently some gender dysphoria issues, and he brought in this gigantic rig on the stage that he would puppet this Ramona, his doppelganger, and
it was like an alter ego.
Yeah, but like physical.
Okay.
And it was like excruciating because it was risible. But he's a genius. I mean, he's done so many amazing things. I'm not dissing him at all. It just, this one didn't
But it
work.
was over everybody's.
Well, it just didn't, it was too early. I mean, 5 years later, doing digital puppets is, a little bit more common. Let me see if I can, okay, oh my God.
Well, you guys were doing digital queers 10 years before that, so digital puppets can't be.
Yeah, exactly. Digital puppets, digital queers with digital puppets in their hands. I'll tell you, the ex-boyfriend of one of my best friends, I'm not going to tell you his name because it's not nice. He was going to do this performance piece on the stage, and he came up and he couldn't do it. He couldn't get started, and in the end, he sat down on his butt, and the audience was so with him, like they so wanted him to succeed, but it didn't work, and so those are some examples.
Yeah. So was he like performance art or something? Is that what he was trying to do?
I don't even remember.
Nobody knows.
It didn't work that much that it didn't work. We're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, our presenting sponsor, the McCallum Theater, but we're going to have our continued conversation with Tom Rielly right after this from the McCallum Theater.
The McCallum Theater's 2024-2025 season is on sale now. The world's top artists, from jazz, pop, classical, and comedy to the best of Broadway, only at the Valley's favorite place for great entertainment. Tickets are on sale now at the McCallum Theater box office, by phone, or online at McCallumTheater.org. Tickets sell quickly, so order yours today. A new, exciting season only at the McCallum. The McCallum Theater's 2024-2025 season is on sale now.
We are back with Tom Rielly, and we were digging into the world of TED conferences, but I want you to tell me a little bit about the TED Fellows Program, which you founded. We touched on it at the beginning. Tell me how you put that together and why, and you really kind of devoted a lot of your resources at the time to do that.
Well, I grew up in a nuclear family of 6 people, 3 of whom were Fulbright scholars.
Wow.
That's pretty unlikely.
You guys have good genes over there.
And if they hadn't been Fulbright scholars, I wouldn't exist. Like, so they met in my mom and dad met in England, and then my sister also was a Fulbright scholar.
Wow. My sister was a half-Bright scholar, but that's a whole different story.
Right, exactly. And I knew a lot about fellowship programs from that world. Dad had fellowship programs. He was on the board of the Bosch Fellowship in Germany. And so I was at TED, and I was like, there's not enough young people coming to the conference. What if we try to find some super genius young people from around the world who were exemplary and heterogeneous? So many fellowship programs are everyone's, a business person, or everyone's a lawyer or a doctor, and that's not what I wanted to do. And I wanted the weirdest people I could find. And then what would happen when we put all those people together? That's what they call the most important benefit of the program is the other fellows, but also for them to have an ability to address the TED audience. And a lot of good things have happened because of that.
I mean, that's got to be just an unbelievable goal for somebody to set, to actually get on a stage and do a TED Talk. Your dad didn't want you to be an actor. Did he get a chance to see what you put together later in life?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I explained it to him. He hasn't come to the conference, but he did come to TED. My mom and my dad both came to TED.
Yeah. Did they get to see your end of the show skit, your satirical thing?
No. I don't think so. I don't think the timing worked out, but I was lucky that they got to see what I do.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Was your dad finally appeased, even though you didn't go into foreign affairs, when he saw what you're doing in the world of technology, when he saw how much you had harnessed all these things to move the world in a really interesting direction? Was he?
Well, I would say that he doesn't know the details of it all that much. I mean, I've explained it to him. I've showed him presentations and stuff. But I would say he's happy with my trajectory.
Yeah.
It took him a while.
Yeah. Well, my dad always, for years when I was working in television, my dad would always ask me when I was going to get a real job.
Yeah,
I don't remember any of my dads asking me that question.
None of the five.
Not one of them.
I think I hate such patronizing comments. Because anyway, don't get me going off, but people trying to crush people's dreams, and my dad wasn't actually trying to do that, except for the movie stuff.
Except for that was
which he certainly was. So with fellows, we have now 341 fellows from over 100 countries who we bring them to the conference, we pay for them, they get a chance to appear for the most part, and it changes their lives. And if they speak, they don't always speak anymore, but they always did when I was in charge of it, then stuff would happen like Chris Sacca, famous VCs would come up to him afterwards and say, I want to fund your business, or I want to donate to your NGO. And they make these relationships which stay around for a long time. It's so great because everyone's like, oh, you're giving to them. And I think you are so not understanding what we're doing. They are giving to us. And we should listen to them and obviously ignore them at our peril, because these are people who are going to invent the future, who are inventing the future. Yeah.
Think of how many of those people you've been able to see over the years because of your involvement in TED.
Yes, and I have a pretty good eye for picking people.
So that was my next question. How do you select these? Say you wanted to put a room full of the weirdest people you could find. Weird, brilliant. So how do you find them?
So up until recently, it's been an open application process, but it's now a nomination process. But basically, through that process, we find a bunch of candidates and then research the heck out of them. And we're so lucky about the results. And you know, one of the fellows, Shivani Saroya, is a financial services for the developing world entrepreneur, and she's raised, I think, her company's worth $1 billion. And the first time she talked about it was on the TED Fellows stage. The director of The Color Purple, the movie that came out, it's a TED Fellows. Yeah. Director of the next Star Wars movie is a TED Fellow. And then it just goes on and on.
Well, I hope he's better at it than Ryan Johnson.
It's a she.
A she.
It's a she, and she's from Pakistan.
Wow.
She's an amazing person. She's already won 2 Oscars, so I think she's going to be good.
She's probably made it, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, there's so many social justice people and so many education reformers and then crazy inventors. One of the guys, when he was 16 or 15, before we picked him, because he had to be 18, made this tool called Vetagel, which is basically meant for a soldier. If they get an IED blowing their whole side open, they have about 12 seconds to live. And this is this gel that the other soldier injects, and in 10 seconds it will close the wound. And it will survive the helicopter ride to the military hospital, even though it's really like that.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
How old was this? 16?
I think he had the idea when he was 15 or 16.
Holy cow.
But he was 18 when we took him in the program. I mean, in his case, I was so amazed. He was in Business Week, and I just called him and said, you have to apply. Which, no, we would do that sometimes.
You'd see these things and just catch your eye.
But now they have to get in. They have to, you know.
I'm sure the vetting process is vigorous.
Oh, my God. It's so incredibly vigorous. And
Randy, we're out.
Oh, shoot. I can't spell TED anyway.
So there's multiple levels using both the staff and also the fellows themselves. They vet the other folks. And it's really hard to get in.
And so when you founded this, you had kind of come up with the idea and raised all the money to do it, right?
Well, not all of it. We since raised a whole bunch more money, but I figured the best way to get your boss to say yes to a new idea is to say that you've already paid for it. And that's what we did. And I raised the money from some prominent philanthropists. And Chris was like, great, go for it.
You're a damn good fundraiser.
Yeah. I've raised a lot of money in my life, like at least 30 or 40 million.
Wow.
Something like that.
That's pretty good. Hey, we got to move on to a short thing here that we do at every episode, and you get to play a part in it.
It's our rapid round.
It is. It's time for the Big Conversations Little Bar Rapid Round. We ask our guest 5 key questions. The Rapid Round is presented by Vitara Wellness, just a stone's throw from Little Bar at 74345 Highway 111 in Palm Desert. Vitara Wellness is your path to lasting weight loss success. Open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Vitara Wellness offers medical weight loss services, IV vitamin and hydration therapy, hormone replacement therapy, and regenerative cell therapy. Transform your health, transform your life. Visit them online at Vitara, that's Vitara, wellness.com. Live life well. You ready for some quick questions?
I am. Just if I go too long, just tell me.
Oh, you won't be able to go too long.
All right.
We ask very simple
These
questions.
are really easy. Dogs or cats?
Cat.
Are they the first one to say cat?
I think he is our first cats guy.
Should we continue?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll continue cats. First, you said you've been in the valley about 4 years now?
Yes.
When you have visitors come in, what's one of the first places you like to take them to see?
The windmills.
Ah. And you're able to tell them the whole story of all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
He's our first windmill guy, too.
That's right. You can recommend one book to a college graduate. What would it be?
Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Payton.
So check that one out. Friends or Cheers? Which was your favorite show?
Terribly, I never watched either.
Neither one. So it was a tie.
It was a tie. They both lost.
You can wear one color for the rest of your life.
Purple.
Which you're wearing today.
Yes.
A little bit in there. There you go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is this week's Rapid Round presented by Vitara Wellness in Palm Desert. Visit VitaraWellness.com or give them a call at 760-208-4011.
So what's coming up for you?
Well, end of the year, always lots to do. We're waiting to hear about a grant that multiple millions of dollars, which is always makes you feel good when they say yes.
Yes.
They've been,
I wouldn't know. I'll bet it does.
You should
Right.
call him.
Right. Getting ready for Thanksgiving with my mom and trying to figure out what am I going to do for Christmas. A valid solution is nothing. And then we
I really love the way your mind works.
And then we move into TED 2025 planning. It happens in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's all encompassing for 4 months.
Are there themes to each one of the TEDs?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're on the websites. I can't remember
Okay.
what they are, but yes, like the bold and the beautiful was one. Yeah, I can't remember all of them.
Well, listen, I've learned enough about it that I want to start checking them out. I'll be disappointed not to see you at the end of it,
Yeah,
talking to the crowd.
Well, this has been, honestly, I don't know that we've had a guest that I really ever felt like I was not keeping up with until you. I'd like to pick your brain a lot more.
Well, the whole TED thing was just fascinating.
I know.
It's kind of one of those things that's out there and everybody talks about it, but now I know what it is.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel the same way. We had someone who did a
We did.
TED Talk.
We did.
Jason Tate.
Follow up. Look at on YouTube. Look at TED Ed, so TED-Ed, or you can just look at on our website.
Okay.
It's our program for young people from 7 to 30, animated lessons about all kinds of different subjects, and they're amazing. They're truly amazing.
I'll check that out. Thank you.
TED.com. Yeah. Do you have children?
Yeah, we both have children.
But how
His are grown-ups.
I have 13-year-old granddaughters who will probably be very interested in this.
I have a 4-year-old granddaughter named Lorraine, who's William's daughter, and it gives me so much joy to be a grandfather.
Oh, it's the best.
It's none of the discipline, all of the fun.
Right.
The moment my granddaughters were born, I told my son I already liked them better than I liked him.
Right, of course. Well, no, of course you're used to him, like whatever. And how old are your kids?
19 and 16, both girls.
Good kids.
Great kids.
Good.
Our oldest is on the dean's list and honor student at UC Santa Barbara.
Mine are not in prison. So we're both doing pretty well.
Here.
Vesta gets straight A's, but she may still get arrested. We don't know. She's our wild child.
Yes.
Tom, thank you so much for
Tom
joining us
Rielly,
here
our
today.
guest on this week's edition of Big Conversations Little Bar. Thank you, John McMullen, our producer. Thank you to the McCallum Theater, our presenting sponsor. Please patronize as many of their shows as you can. They're always giving you some wonderful cultural opportunities. My name is Patrick Evans. On behalf of my co-host Randy Florence, we thank you, and be sure to subscribe and listen on any of your favorite podcast platforms.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Big Conversations Little Bar. Recorded on location at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California, the center of the Coachella Valley universe. And presented by the McCallum Theater. Online at McCallumTheater.org. This program is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System. All episodes are available from BigConversationsLittleBar.com and most major podcast portals, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify.